My name is Randy Finch. I've been in Taiwan for 12 years, originally from the US. A film and theater producer for many years. Turned about 50, got a job at the University of Fine Arts in Guangzhou. Do some consulting for Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Education.
When you told your colleagues, your family, your friends that you were moving to Taiwan and to Asia, what was their reaction?
There was no one who said, "You're crazy, don't do it." Some people understood that I was unhappy about the United States. People had so much material wealth and were so unhappy. Also, I've always done dumb things. I've always had a job at a studio. It was my dream come true. I had a sports car and an expense account, and I hated it. Sort of walked in and said things that got me fired. Basically said, came here to make movies, not excuses.
Damn, okay.
This particular manifestation of me is going to be here once. I shouldn't be working for people who I don't respect. In New York, where I had been doing theater, I had more authority because there wasn't a real big pyramid. I was doing a lot of plays with movie stars. About half a dozen of the plays got acquired and made into movies. So while I was in law school, a script that I had developed was made into a movie. So after struggling for about 10 years to get into the movie business, I was in competition at Cannes, walking the red carpet with Richard Gere, and I was launched. Circa 2001, 2003, I became interested in how you're going to make money online. Started hearing rumblings about things happening in China. China is unique in that, well, in the Cultural Revolution, you couldn't make movies. But then in the 80s, they started making movies. But in the 80s, if you made a successful movie, you got paid the same as if it was any other movie. But then in 92, they started allowing people to make money. And there were no legacy businesses. The legacy movie businesses, they had physical offices in all the major cities to make sure that the marketing was done, and shipping department to ship the prints. And China didn't do that. China was doing it online. Just as I was following Netflix, I was trying to get myself to China to see what was going on. Wrote letters and said, I'm willing to give lectures. And they were eager to have a foreigner who had worked in Hollywood come, because that was sort of rare and they wanted to understand Hollywood. A colleague, she had done a Fulbright at the Taipei National University of the Arts, and she said, you got to stop in Taipei. And I said, well, I'm really interested in China, Taipei, you sure? She said, no, go, it's a beautiful place. They have unique culture that doesn't have the same censorship and other issues that China has. So I went and I gave a talk. It paid off because the chairman said, would you like to teach here? We have an opening for a producer. So I said, well, what would it require? I don't speak Chinese. And he said, well, the government encourages us to hire English-speaking teachers, especially at the grad level, because students should be able to internationalize. I abruptly quit teaching in the US, take a huge cut in pay, which didn't matter at all because cost of living here made up for it, and quality of life improved. Taiwanese students have an experience of education that is totally different from American students. This form of education requires a sage on a stage who you give respect to, and you don't contradict, you don't question what they say, you write down. Americans come here to teach, and it's like paint drying. There's nobody's like talking or raising their hand, or they're just looking at you and maybe writing things down. In my form of teaching, it's a guide at your side. Somebody who says, write a story, or, well, what do you think? This is about engaging you, your contributions, your questions. That's what this is about. I love hearing the bad ideas because I have to explain why that idea sucks. And in explaining why it sucks, I'm discovering stuff. Oh yeah, that's why that idea sucks. The experience of teaching and being an educator is about confronting difficult students who have no respect for you. It's painful and really frustrating, but also out of it comes insight. If you let students who are in film school write a script, half of them will begin with an alarm clock going off and somebody reaching out and turning off the alarm clock and their day begins. Another like 20% of them will be about somebody thinking about killing themselves, and that's the drama. And as a film professor, you've seen that film easily 1,000 times.
And you want to kill yourself now.
I want to wake up, kill myself. A dozen years ago, I would go to the Beijing Film Academy and give talks about the American film business, what's a deal and what's a union, and they wanted to know all these things. Because I asked, are you sure you want me to talk about unions? Because they're not legal in China. And I was told, yeah. I mean, we don't want you going on TV talking about unionize and get better working conditions in Xinjiang. But we are the Beijing Film Academy. We are trying to train our students who are an elite. They understand their role in the culture. China's soft power through culture is limited by censorship and topics that are suitable for the authorities. Some of the most deeply powerful cinema I've seen has been made by Chinese filmmakers, but you can't see it.
Really? Oh, it's all squashed. How did you see it then?
Some because I taught and was able to see some things. Like, I've asked myself the question about why Korea has been so successful in spreading soft power and Taiwan has not. I do know that after Chiang Kai-shek, there was this explosion of artists making films in a newly democratic Taiwan, winning awards at international festivals, making deep impact on world cinema. Around the year 2000, that essentially ended. That is when Taiwan entered the WTO. Up until roughly 2000, Taiwan's film industry was protected in that Western films wouldn't compete. In 2000, all the barriers came down. Except there is something called the cultural exception. China said we want to put up a barrier so that we can protect our domestic industry. So China, for example, only allows a certain number of foreign films to play on Chinese screens each year. Because China has so much manufacturing power, the WTO said, okay, you can protect your culture. And Taiwan said, well, we want to protect our culture. They said no. And this sort of killed the Taiwanese film business, because if you run a theater in Ximending, do you want to have the new superhero movie playing on your screens with great production value, or some domestically made, lower budget Taiwanese movie, especially since the American producer will undercut you and say, oh, you don't have to give me that much of the box office. Whatever I make is gravy. So a lot of filmmakers survived by making things for public television, and public television is a bureaucracy here, very conservative. No violence, no nudity, no emotionally challenging subjects. Making motion pictures that people would want to tell their friends about was difficult. If you're in government and you want to create soft power, is things that inspire awe, that make me feel like my place in the universe is kind of amazing. Because Taiwan has freedom of expression, you can do things you can't do in virtually all of Southeast Asia. That could be Taiwan's superpowers. They could also make uniquely personal, interesting motion pictures, because everyone who lives in Taiwan is an example of what it means to live a courageous life. I can't be certain what's going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly.
I want people to know about that. In the places that I've lived in the world, Taiwan is sort of exceptional. Taiwan has a lot to offer in choices about how humans can live together in a way that is peaceful, healthy, kind, and allows for spiritual and emotional well-being. One of the virtues of Taiwanese culture is that being older doesn't necessarily put you on a shelf. When I was starting in Hollywood, I did a play that was a big hit, and big Hollywood stars came out to see it. 2 generations older than me. I had dinner with Robert Wise, who was former president of the Motion Picture Academy, won the Oscar 4 times, but nobody wanted to talk to him. He was old, couldn't make movies anymore. Taiwan, there's a culture of old people aren't put on the shelf. I can have friends who are young, who are eager to learn about stuff, and there is so much rejection at any level, but certainly when you're starting out, having somebody who has been through it and explains to you that, this is not the end of the world, means a lot. Had some amazing experiences. The fact that my students, people who previously have been left out of the conversation, maybe a young woman from rural Taiwan is on the same playing field that everybody else is. Making motion pictures, getting international attention is hugely gratifying. Helping young people express their experiences in a way that other people can find out about them. Really, it's what I'm proudest of. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Of course. I appreciate it.